And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes! Echo down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange! 145!
Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
The methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of NSF Live. My name is Ryan Caton. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get straight into it because we've got a lot to talk about. Our guest, of course, the one, the only Sir Peter Beck. Thank you very much, Peter, for joining us in this morning for you, afternoon, evening around the world. It's an exciting time for Rocket Lab, I think it's fair to say.
Oh, thanks very much, Ryan. It's great to talk to you. And I've got to pull you up again. I'm sorry. Last time you had me on here, no picture of Electron flying on your opening credits. And here we go again. When am I going to get Electron on your opening credits?
I will bring that up with Mr. Jack Beyer, who is in charge of the intro. We've that you are not the first guest to mention things that should be in the intro that are not in the intro. I will put it that way. But yeah,
second most frequently launched rocket in the world. Come on, guys.
Jack and Max were invited down to New Zealand. I can't remember now, nearly a couple of years ago. So you're right, we do need to get some Electron footage in the intro. But also alongside me to bring in some of the chat questions, Sawyer Rosenstein joining us. How you doing, Sawyer?
I'm doing great. Yeah, they were down there for the 50th Electron launch, so we have the footage. We just got to make sure we get that in there.
And I'm not going to let it slide, guys. Come on, I picked you up last time.
I will make sure to bring that up with Jack as soon as we're done. But we've got you for an hour or so, so we're going to be starting off with what's going on here on Earth. First of all, I've designed this very cleverly. We're going to start on Earth, then we'll move up to Venus, and then we'll move on to Mars, saving the best till last because there has been a lot of discussion as of late around Mars sample return, the Mars telecommunications orbiter, all of that jazz. We'll be getting onto that.
Awesome.
But first of all, we're going to start with Electron, of course, as you were so fantastically advertising it there at the start. The last time we had you on the show was just shy of 2 years ago. You just reflown the Rutherford engine for the first time on a flight because you were recovering those Electron boosters. But since that point, it appears that the recovery has kind of dwindled out. You don't really appear to be doing that anymore. Is it officially cancelled? Are you no longer recovering Electron? Can you dive into any of the decisions behind the mission profiles that you've been flying with Electron?
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, we got to a really good point with Electron. In fact, the last reusable flight that we splashed down, the booster's actually sitting in the back of the factory there, ready to roll through the line. But really what it came down to is priorities. And, right now I need the recovery team and reusability team working Neutron, not Electron. There is kind of a positive economic case for reusing Electron. But the reality is, like, an Electron sticker price is 8 million, call it. Neutron sticker price is 55 million, and sort of 70% of the total cost of a vehicle is in the first stage. So it's just where is it most sensible to point the resource, and the most sensible place to point the resource right now is definitely on Neutron. So we might pick it up a little bit later, but economically it's not a big enough lever to pull right now, and also just the resources of the team. But no, we got it in a good place, and it's ready to pick up when we get a little bit more time.
That's awesome. So it's kind of mothballed for the time being. It's not entirely gone away. You can still spool it back up if that becomes, if that makes sense economically at a later date.
Yeah. No, like I say, we got the last one we were really, really happy with. We had all of our waterproofing techniques and design changes on that vehicle, and it all looked really good actually. So, but yeah, it's just Neutron is just a giant sucking sound of all resource and capital in the company.
Yeah. And speaking of Neutron, kind of the transition from Electron to Neutron, is you saying that teams have been moving to to Neutron recovery. Was there any of the experience that you gained by recovering Electron? Did any of that data fuel the design for Neutron?
So much.
I'm getting a sense that it did.
Yes. I would have hated to come into Neutron without doing that, right? So Electron was a little bit unique in the fact that it was a completely unboosted re-entry, if that's a correct way to describe it. I mean, we had no burns. So what that means is we came in stinking hot, and we really had to manage the angle of attack. We had to manage the heating, and that aerothermal re-entry environment is really hard to model. Like it's a multi-physics problem. You've got thermal, mechanical, and chemistry. It's really nasty to model. So just actually getting real data and real control data going as you come in was super valuable. We tested a lot of materials, so a lot of the materials that are on Neutron all went through that re-entry program. So we brought a lot of risk down on those materials. But I would say that one of the biggest was just the GNC element, the targeting and re-entry kind of interface stuff was just super valuable. We would have massive big holes in our models and our data if we weren't able to redo those re-entries.
Sounds cool. So we should probably talk about Neutron in more detail. It's the big flashy thing that is coming up, and we're all very excited for it. Fingers crossed shortly. Just very briefly, if you could give us a kind of a rundown of what you are expecting with the first flight of Neutron, because some companies, some rockets, it's like if we clear the pad, jobs are good and good day for us. Some other rockets, like SAS, they fly around the moon on the first time, right? So whereabouts on that scale does Neutron fall?
No, I don't subscribe to any of that clear the pad is a great day kind of scenarios. No. So the clear intention is to go to orbit with Neutron. We're cut everybody a little bit of slack on re-entry. We're not slipping a barge under the first kind of re-entry. We should absolutely be going to orbit on the first flight, but we'll do a soft splashdown in the ocean for stage one, and undoubtedly there'll be some things to learn from that before we go and put a very expensive hunk of metal under it and try and land it.
Yeah. And speaking of orbit, do you have any payloads in mind to be deployed? Are you going for an operational payload or a fun payload, or is there any insight into that just yet?
Well, see, last time I put a fun payload on Electron, I got into trouble from a whole lot of astronomers for creating something shiny in the sky. So I was sort of a little bit gun shy in doing that now. It's funny, we were talking about it the other day, and I'd just been completely focused on the vehicle. I didn't really even give it much thought. But yes, no, I think we'll have to do something. But it's certainly not priority right now. It's all about the vehicle. But it's a good kick up the butt to think about something cool for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not ruled out.
No, it's not ruled out. I'll try and do something less controversial this time, though. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. And the date for when that first launch may be, are you still targeting that to happen this year? We are halfway through September now, so time is ticking before 2025 comes to an end.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we're pushing super hard, and we will be there in the last day of December until the last hour, trying to get a launch away. We run green light schedules, meaning that there's no fat and everything, and always caution everybody. It's a rocket program. But we are pushing super hard. Like literally, the team is sleeping in the factories to try and get one on the pad and away by the end of the year. But I mean, we always like to put this into context. I mean, the timeline that we brought in Neutron to life is crazy short, and a few months here and there is kind of irrelevant in a 20 or 30 year lifespan of a product. But That being said, nobody's waving the white flag yet, and we'll keep pushing until it's no longer feasible.
So I'm wondering if Jake Egan, our wonderful producer in the background, can bring up some of the images of that launch pad, which you opened officially a few weeks ago, because we've been getting a lot of questions in chat and in the member Discord, because you've got a wonderful, swanky looking pad, wonderful, huge water tower, but your launch mount is static and there isn't a huge tower. So everyone is wondering, how are you going to be stacking the rocket on the pad? Is Rocket Lab in the market for a big crawler crane, or how are you guys going to be working that one out?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So this is kind of phase one of the pad, and then there's phase two. And the kind of design requirements for Neutron is never break it over. So we want to launch it vertically, we want to land it vertically, we want to integrate vertically, and fly again vertically. So when we sort of stood back at the very design point of the vehicle and said, okay, what are the con-ops that suck? What are the con-ops that take time? What are the con-ops that add cost and risk? And it's always breaking it over, right? So stage kind of phase one is, yeah, we crane it on, that's fine. Stage two, there's a rollover gantry there that enables us to pick it and place it, and then ultimately integrate in that rollover gantry. And that just means that the vehicle never ever needs to go horizontal. And I mean, it's landed vertically, it's launched vertically, it's shipped vertically, and then it's just a whole nother operation you don't need to do. And there's no launch tower because, if we stand back and we looked at Electron, it's like, man, what is the thing that sucks on Electron? And it's always a stage two umbilical rebuild. So, after every flight, those umbilicals just get a hard time. It's kind of hard not to because they get in the breeze. It's not necessarily a tremendous cost, but it's just a pain in the butt to have to rebuild those and inspect those umbilicals. So, this is designed to be a high cadence, high turnaround, short turnaround kind of vehicle. So, we put a lot of stuff in stage one that you would normally kind of segregate out into either stage two or infrastructure. So all of stage two, as you know, is embedded in stage one. We do that so we have a really clean load path. So that means that all the fluids and gases are umbilicaled up through stage one and into stage two. So there's actually just no need for a tower anymore. And because we're not breaking it over, you don't need that structural element or member of a tower either. So it just keeps the pad super clean and there's just no maintenance required between turnarounds. It just keeps all the complexity kind of umbilicaled into stage one.
And speaking of the different stages, we're seeing there that picture of stage two. It's within stage one because Neutron is it's not a traditional one stage stacked atop another stage stacked atop another stage, right? Like everything, it's really, if you were trying to describe Neutron to somebody who isn't really that in tune with rockets, it's like, well, they've got the fairings, but the fairings are attached to stage one, but then there's stage two inside stage. So I'm just wondering if you could give us a little rundown as to why. Because between the last interview and now, it was revealed on your website that stage one is actually going to be kind of in two modules, which are then going to be connected. So I'm just wondering if you could give us a little insight into how that assembly process is actually going to take place, because it's very untraditional. We haven't really seen anything like this before. Yeah.
And look, this all comes from the starting point of reusability, right? Cost and reusability. What are the, if you've got to go and fish out fairings out of the ocean, that's just another ship and another process and another refurb and so on and so forth. So the best thing to do is to not throw your fairings away. So we came up with the Hungry Hippo fairing that we kind of lovingly named it, where, the fairings remain attached to stage one. And then if you do the economics around total reusability of stage one and stage two, it's kind of, for a 13-ton vehicle, it's kind of, 50-50 whether or not the reusability of stage two actually pencils out. Now, if you went in the traditional kind of sense, it probably does. But if you kind of think a little bit outside the box, then it gets really kind of blurry. And, stage two is one of those things where it is, in Neutron, it is disposable, so it has to be incredibly low cost, but ironically, it has to be the highest performing stage. So that you've got kind of an oxymoron there where you need, something super high performance and super cheap. And the way you kind of do that, in the way we approach this, is that you take stage two out of the load path. Because if you look at the load through the upper stage, the dominant load, there's obviously the pressure load, but the dominant load is the bending moments. And if you can take those loads out, then you can basically make almost a balloon tank of carbon. So stage two is kind of hung like a sack in stage one, where there's no structural load path through it. So the tank is super light, and because it's super light, it means there's almost no carbon in it. Because there's no carbon in it, it means it's super cheap to make, and the material cost is very, very low. And because there's no mass to it, it's really high performance. So it's really about optimizing the disposal element to be just ridiculously cheap. And we think the economics in this approach are very, very favorable. So that's kind of how we end up with stage two on the inside. Now, your point about kind of splitting stage one into modules, that's kind of an intermediate approach again. Once we have the total rollover gantry, then we'll be able to integrate vertically on that, and we never need to split a module. But the module design allows for a couple of things. One, you can do payload integration, off the vehicle in a clean room in the module. And if you look at stage one, it allows you to kind of have, I don't know, think of it like a truck trailer kind of scenario where the booster, the power pack, all the engines, press systems, stage separations, all those kind of elements are all retained within that stage one. Then you have the module that splits off the top that enables you to do separate payload integrations and whatnot. So you can have like a couple of stage one booster sort of power packs on the pad, if you will. And then you can just integrate modules. And from a maintenance perspective, you can, take out the bit that has all the thermal cycles, do whatever maintenance you want to do on it, and get more longevity out of the upper stage bit or the upper module that doesn't see so much thermal load and so much structural load. So, a tank and power pack might be reusable 20 times, an upper stage might be reusable 50 or 100 times. So it's really about, splitting those things apart for the economics.
So those will be mix and matchable. It's not going to be like one module is directly tied to another module and it stays with that for its entire lifespan. You can swap those out as needed.
100%. Yep. Think about it like swapping engines on the wing of an aeroplane.
Interesting. And speaking of those production with stage two, but also with stage one, what kind of production rate overall are you expecting for Neutron? How many, let's say, completed vehicles, both parts of stage one, stage two, how many of those are you expecting to be kind of rolling off the production line, so to speak, say per year?
Yeah, well, this is the bane of my existence, to be honest with you, because ironically, for the early stages of the program, we need the most number of stage ones we'll probably ever need. Because the chances of us reusing them one straight away is probably low. There'll be some iterations and learnings. So it's the production flow is almost backwards. It's like we need the most first, and then once we start reusing them, we need less. So the factory is kind of set up for the highest production rate out of the chute, which is backwards. The way we're thinking about the flight rate for Neutron, though, is pretty much identical to Electron, and that we'll fly 1, then we'll fly 3, and then we'll fly 5, and then we'll scale from there. A year, that is. And there's lots of tension within the company about can we fly more faster, obviously, but sort of holding firm on that one, because it's we proved with Electron, you fly 1, you learn a tremendous amount. You just need that iteration time to roll all those learnings in, and to fly more than 3 the next year is kind of unrealistic, really. Even if you do have the production rate to support it, you want to take advantage of those learnings. Because the worst thing you can do is like put a vehicle in production that's really tough to produce, that's got some really nasty elements to it. Then you just battle with that for forever and ever. And I think we've learned a lot of these lessons with Electron, because Electron now, it's flight 70 completed, and flight 71 on a pad. Like the inertia to change when you get that far in is really high. So nobody wants to change anything because it's proven and it works and all the rest of it. So the time to get your change done and your block upgrades are really early on. So allowing that kind of time to get those block upgrades means that ultimately, a couple of years down the track, you end up with a much, much better vehicle.
And speaking of the future, I believe Sawyer has a couple questions from the chat room about where potentially Neutron could be launching from. Sawyer, what have you got?
Oh, this will be good.
Exactly. Ross was asking in chat, are there any future plans to launch Neutron from any other spaceports other than Wallops? Obviously, you have Mahia where you're launching currently with Electron. Any other places maybe that aren't on the map that we know of that are being considered?
No, I mean, I suspect in time we'll probably need a West Coast site. Although there is quite a nice sun-synchronous corridor out of Wallops, actually, it's a nicer sun-synchronous corridor than the Cape, but it's still a big dog leg, so it's still a big energy sink. So I suspect in time we'll probably have to have a sun-synchronous or West Coast launch site. But no plans for that right now. I think I've said it before. I really dislike building launch sites because they're the biggest P&L burner you can imagine. If you look at like Neutron, the vast majority of all Neutron expenditure has gone into infrastructure, like literally pouring concrete and steel in the ground. The actual cost of the vehicle and the BOM of the vehicle is pretty low, but it's all of that infrastructure build is really expensive. And with not dissimilar to Electron pads, we put a lot of stage one in the pad. So they're very complex machines, and obviously take a lot of resources to build.
I mean, that makes sense. Ground support equipment is everyone's favorite. And one thing I know that is also one of your favorites, so to speak, has been marine assets. I mean, now we obviously have return on investment becoming a reality here. So Supersonic Retro Propulsion is asking, do marine assets still suck?
They do. I'm sorry, but they do. You put them in the water and they literally just start melting away in front of your eyes. So now they are a necessary evil, I have to admit. So we have our barge under construction, return on investment right now, and so that is a large piece of steel, and look, there's just too much penalty to return to launch site. I mean, so you end up landing on a barge. But yes, no, so it's definitely a love-hate relationship for sure.
That's fantastic. I'm excited to see it in action then. Ryan, I'll send it back to you for some more questions.
Yeah, because speaking of return on investment, that is currently under construction, but we have seen in the past some companies are utilizing more than one landing vessel. So is that something in the future for Neutron? Are you going to end up with a fleet of barges, or have you not looked that far
worse
forward
now
yet?
You're going to have a fleet of marine assets. It's even worse. No, we'll try. I mean, look, as cadence increases, we've got a pretty slick con ops here that hopefully we don't have to have too many marine assets to meet what we need to meet. But there is a point in scaling where we have so much launch and the transit time to get back is insufficient to allow for the launch cadence. So unfortunately there may need to be more marine assets in time. But at the moment we really focused on the con ops, and that barge has 1 megawatt worth of electrical power to drive the electric thrusters. And the electric thrusters lift out and pivot out, so we can boogie that thing along, because you don't want to have to wait for ages to get your rocket back. So we took some learnings from others on that one, and made a speedy barge, not a sluggish barge.
A speedy barge. You probably could have named it that, to be honest. But yeah, anyways. Is return to launch site recovery still on the cards for Neutron? I guess that would mean using less marine assets, or how's the performance on Neutron for that?
Yeah, I mean it's the same. I mean it's physics, so it's the same kind of knockdown you would expect on any vehicle doing those kind of those kind of re-entry burns. And yeah, look, absolutely, we'd much rather land it back on land than out at sea. But the penalty is always fairly high. And some missions will allow it, but it's all about getting to flight quickly and getting that cadence up. The licensing regime for a return to launch site is quite complicated. So that we didn't want to bite that off right at the beginning. We'll bite that off later as kind of a cost down reduction point.
And when Neutron is coming back through the atmosphere for re-entry, it of course has its flaps, it has its landing gear. How are you guys going to be powering those? Is that going to be powered by hydraulics? Are you using electrics to power that? We've seen obviously various solutions to these problems from other people in the past. How are you guys going to be sorting this one out?
Yeah, no, so we're all electromechanical. So our heritage is electromechanical. Electron, obviously it has electric pump motors. So we have a lot of experience with high voltage, high power, electric pump motors. Rutherford is all electromechanical TVC. So we've never had hydraulics in the loop. So the natural propensity for the engineers is to just go electromechanical. So the canards, as you point out, they're electromechanical, slightly larger than the TVCs on the engines. Obviously, the load case is slightly larger. But I mean, if you put them side by side, they look basically the same. One is just a bigger brother than the other. We just basically scaled up all the electromechanical TVC stuff we did for Electron. That's proven to be really, really reliable and efficient. No hydraulics, all electric.
That's pretty neat. And we've spoken to the production rate that you're looking for with Neutron. Have you got any idea on the turnaround times yet? What kind of mission turnaround from landing the booster to reflying it? But then I also recall you saying that you can split the booster into two parts, so that might cause a little bit of it doesn't really create a clear definition of what a turnaround time may mean. What are you expecting with that?
Yeah, well, actually, just to finish off on the last question about Electro TVC, so we actually used the Electron HVB bats that run the pump motors to run all those. So it's actually exactly the same part number out of Electron that runs all those TVCs. So there's there's quite a few instances where there's the same part numbers between vehicles. But to answer your question, the design point for the vehicle was 24 hours. So for the same vehicle, so that was the design point. Now, I appreciate that's somewhat of an unrealistic design point, but sometimes you have to create a set of requirements that are completely unrealistic to get something good. So everything was driven off that requirement. Right back to like propellant selection. One of the key reasons why we went for methane and oxygen was simply because of that 24-hour turnaround, because we have a lot of experience obviously with LOX-Kero, and you just can't get around the fact that you get sooting on that LOX-Kero propulsion cycle. So you'd have to do quite a lot of cleaning, especially of turbines and whatnot and stuff to be able to recycle an engine. Whereas you run a Methalox engine and it's still shiny on the inside after you finish a full pull. So it's just those kind of high level requirements were just locked in day one, and they drove all of these design decisions. Same with the fairings, right? You can't be messing around horizontal, breaking a rocket over and integrating fairings on. Like, you just need to zip them open, drop your second stage with your payload integrated into the top, and zip them closed and be ready to go. So that's the requirements. Now, whether or not we ever achieve that is a different kind of question. But certainly there's nothing that's been designed and incorporated into the vehicle today that won't allow that technically to happen. Now, whether like I say, whether we can is a different kettle of fish.
Interesting. Okay. Rolling back to the opening of Launch Complex 3 very quickly. During the various speeches that were said there was one line which pretty much everyone's on the team's ears were very interested when this was mentioned. We noticed that human spaceflight was mentioned in a list of various future capabilities. Has there been any sort of development towards that from Rocket Lab? Of course, we saw the Not a Capsule announcement a couple of years ago. Has anything progressed since that point, or is it still just kind of something in the distance? If we'll do it, we might do it. We don't know yet. How's that playing out for you at the moment?
Well, I think I even went on your show and said that I would never build a bigger rocket and had to pay the consequences for that. So now I rule nothing out. And so, you know, Neutron is being designed to be human rateable. Not human rated out of the factory, but human rateable. So what that means is like stuff like safety factor and tanks. Like you don't want to go back and requal all of your main tanks because you're a bit shy on safety factor for human spaceflight. So we've done all that sort of stuff up front. Now, the reality is that currently there is one destination served by 1.5 providers, and served well. So, you know, we're very commercial here at Rocket Lab. There is no business case, right? There's one destination and one customer. There's no business case to go and run off and develop a capsule. But I don't believe that's going to be the future. I think there will be multiple destinations and there'll be multiple customers. And when there is, I want to make sure that we're ready to compete and ready to service. So this is why it's not a capsule announcement, because you know we're certainly enabling the vehicle to do it, and you know it certainly will be possible. But until there's kind of a really strong commercial imperative to do it, then we'll just sit on our hands and wait until that time.
Okay, interesting. And one more point on Neutron. Speaking to the future, you spoke earlier about block upgrades. Is there anything already in your minds about what could come after the first few flights of Neutron, or are you holding back any kind of block 2 or anything like that until you've actually flown a vehicle, gotten that data, and you know have an experience of what it is like to fly a vehicle of that size?
Yeah. Well, so we're following pretty much the identical path we did with Electron, and you know, for block 1, if you will, we have high margins. So you know, we reserve a lot of payload margin for kind of you know, putting bounds around anything. And you know, when you start with a vehicle design, you know, you create all your Monte Carlos, and some of those Monte Carlos are unbounded until you actually go and fly. And over time, you understand, you know, the performance of the vehicle, propellant residuals, all of these kinds of things. And our approach has always been we just sort of trim those down over time. And if you look at Electron's payload performance, it just goes up and up and up and up over time. There's no kind of fundamental like we have to go back and redo this kind of thing. But you know, as you're building the first of something, you kind of learn, well, man, that really sucked building that. If we change the design of that, then that will be way easier to build and way easier to maintain. And you know, you think you can be good out of the chute by designing it, but you know, the reality is that something on CAD versus something that you're crawling around, you know, in reality, is always very different. So, you know, as I said before, you want to leave that time to roll those things in. So there's no like major kind of block upgrades planned. You know, we'll always start at conservative points everywhere. That includes in propulsion. So, you know, the Archimedes engine will be starting at a very conservative design point, even more conservative than even though it's a very conservative, you know, engine, it will start even more conservatively, and will start to stretch its legs over time. So that's just kind of our approach.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense, right? And we've seen that many times before. You don't want to, you know, go too far. You don't want to go into the deep end and then, you know, blow everything out of the water. You want to be gradual, step up, make sure that you're ready for it when you have those increases in performance. And Sawyer, I will throw it back to you for a couple more questions from the chat room.
Sure. Although if it's blown out of the water, you don't need marine assets. Here's a question saying, based on past Electron reentry telemetry data, modeling, simulations, what level of confidence do you have in recovering Neutron on your first attempt at recovery?
Well, it's a difficult one to put a number against. I would say that just like an order of magnitude more confident than if we didn't do the Electron stuff. You know, when we first did the first Electron reentry, the original design for Electron had like a balut, an inflatable balut at the bottom, to try and manage the thermal load. And I convinced the team, it's like, let's just try it and let's instrument it and just see what we get, because the bounds on the kind of multiphysical modeling are so wide that you know, you really don't know how the oxygen is going to react, and you really don't know, you know, where all those shock waves are going to attach, or you get those shock interactions. And you know, we had no validated models to really prove it. And we brought Electron in, and lo and behold, the first one made it all the way in, and all of a sudden we're able to validate those models. So as we sit today, we're not coming in there with like completely unvalidated materials, completely unvalidated models. Like, we have validation points for all of these things. Now it's a different vehicle, so shock interactions are like I think I mentioned with Electron, are like plasma knives. They're literally like you have one of those, you can put just about anything in front of it and it just slices through it. So you have to manage those very, very carefully, and you never know if you've got that right. But I think, I don't know, I can't give you a percentage confidence level, but I think it's in the medium to high kind of category. I think we'll have a good shot at getting the first one down. But there is other things that are challenging there, because obviously we have to relight the engine, and you've got propellant management devices to keep the propellant in the downcomers, so that you can actually ignite the engine. You've got propellant condition, so on the ground you can condition it really lovely, have it nice and cold, and whereas when you're doing a re-entry, you've got sort of propellant sloshing around, you have ullage collapse and mixing and all these kind of nasty stuff that you think understand, but it's not until you go and try and light an engine that you really do understand.
Yeah, like you mentioned before, there's only so much you can do on CAD versus actual flying.
Yep.
And here's an interesting question. This person's asking, what kind of overlap does Rocket Lab expect between Electron and Neutron, and eventually, with Neutron being online, is there plans to retire Electron?
So I get this question asked heaps, and it's funny. If you look at the growth of the Electron vehicle and its cadence, it's just growing and growing and growing every year, and we just sell more and more Electrons every year. And that's fundamentally because Electron just does something completely different than any other vehicle that's on the market today. It's a small dedicated ride, and if you kind of roll back pre-Electron, if you had like 150, 200, 300 kg satellite, and you had a specific orbit to reach, you'd go and buy a Pegasus for, I don't know, somewhere between $30 and $50 million, or a Minotaur between $30 and $50 million, right? That was your options. Now those missions existed, and those, I think it was like 20 or 30 Pegasus flew over time, and I can't remember how many Minotaurs. But that sort of $50 and $30 million dollar price point, now you buy an Electron for $8 million. So it's just enabled a whole nother level of access to space, for folks. So you can put Neutron on the pad, and it can't do what Electron does. You're going to be spending $55 million for a dedicated flight for a dedicated orbit on Neutron. That just doesn't, So I guess the way I think about it is Electron did for the small launch market what Falcon 9 did for the medium class launch market. It just completely dislocated the pricing and cadence structure. And as a result, the product's become very successful. So there's a very long-winded way of answering the question is no. Electron is going nowhere. In fact, we just see the growth in that product year after year after year. Maybe I should just answer it like that and saved everybody a lot of time.
Thank goodness. I love Electron. It's such a cool little rocket. But yeah, I keep tagging at NASASpaceflight in chat for questions if you have some in chat. But I know you have plenty more, Ryan.
Yeah, we've spent a good nearly 40 minutes or so talking about everything you've been doing on and around Earth. But of course, Rocket Lab has interplanetary ambitions coming up shortly. Fingers crossed we have your private mission to Venus. I was just wondering if you could give us a little update of how things are coming along on that front at the moment.
Yeah, well, historically, I think as we've pointed out, that's always been a nights and weekends kind of project, and unfortunately, the amount of nights and weekends we're trying to get a launch vehicle to the pad right now are consumed. So we haven't made tremendous progress on that. However, that should be changing shortly. That project will get a bit of a boost. So we'll be able to move forward on that and in more of a formal way, which will be great. But we have the re-entry capsule is complete. The TPS is complete, and the instrument is complete, which are the long poles. And now, with Neutron coming online, we no longer need to try and cram it into an Electron. So the aperture for the spacecraft is kind of opened up a little bit. So that enables us to do more things and have more kind of more scope on that spacecraft. So that spacecraft designed aperture has sort of been opened up a bit with Neutron, with the ability to fly it on Neutron now. So we're just taking our time to see what we can do there.
Awesome. So it's a night and weekends project. Do you have a net date you're currently working towards, or is it just it'll happen when it will happen?
Well, there's some good opportunities, obviously for planetary alignment in next year. So it'd be great to see if we could get one, get it away next year. But I'm also, just realistic. The amount of stuff that we've got on that's real paying work is really high. So that always kind of takes a back seat. But hopefully we can improve that shortly.
Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely something we've been keeping an eye on because it's pretty exciting indeed. Venus hasn't been getting too much love as of late, so it's nice to see something actually going towards what is a pretty interesting planet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, I'm as you know, I'm fascinated with Venus, and I think some of the discovery of some life markers on Mars recently are super exciting. But it's just so important to get to Venus and have a look. So, I'll be taking a much greater personal interest in that project here shortly.
And of course, speaking about Mars, we should probably move on to discuss the red planet. It is a hot topic as of late, I think it's fair to say. A lot of people have been talking about it, including yourselves. Rewinding the clock a little bit, though, I think we should go back to start with Mars sample return, and then we can move on to talk about the Mars telecommunications orbiter, because at least from your perspective, they kind of feed into one another. Yeah. So starting with Mars sample return, you guys obviously, or NASA did that request for proposals because they want to move to a more cost-effective, a commercial approach to do Mars sample return. Rocket Lab is, of course, one of the companies offering a solution to NASA. In your opinion, how important is it to get Mars samples back to Earth for like full-on scientific analysis, considering there's a little bit of time is ticking, because some people want to be landing humans on Mars, and as soon as humans land on Mars, the planet's a bit contaminated. So how important is it, in your opinion, to get those samples back pretty much ASAP?
Well, I mean, look, I think everybody knows I have a real passion for planetary science. And, the big question I'm trying to ask with the Venus project is life unique to Earth, or is life not exclusive to Earth and it's evolved elsewhere? So, with the recent kind of discovery of some interesting rocks on Mars, I think it just highlights the fact that, man, we just need to get there and answer this question and bring those samples home. So I think it's tremendously important. I think there's probably half a dozen Nobel Peace Prizes just sitting on the surface of Mars right now, and the scientific discovery that's available through those samples is enormous. And I think people mischaracterize those samples as just some rocks from Mars. They're not. They're like carefully selected scientific treasure troves that not only will give us some insight and discovery into Mars, but the universe. So I don't know, just having them just sitting there on the surface ready to go just seems just so frustrating. We just need to get them back here to Earth and get them in a lab and start unlocking some of these secrets of both Mars and the universe. I think that's just really, really important.
Yeah, of course. So Rocket Lab draws a lot of experience because of the various companies you have been acquiring over the years. But as Rocket Lab as a whole, you haven't really completed a mission like Mars sample return in terms of the scope, the scale. I mean, it's a Mars sample return. Nobody has. I know, but Mars sample return, no matter what way you do Mars sample return, it's a complex mission.
Oh,
right?
It's crazy.
So, yeah. What are some of the biggest risks to conducting such a mission, in your opinion? Literally, going down to the surface of Mars and then returning those samples to Earth?
Well, I think you have to look at the elements that haven't been demonstrated before, right? It's been demonstrated you can land on Mars. Not easy, but it's been demonstrated successfully. You can do that. Obviously, it's demonstrated you can orbit Mars and you can measure all those kinds of things. What hasn't been demonstrated is launching off Mars, and that is non-trivial. But I guess I sit back and I think, well, if I'm a Martian. And I'm sitting there and looking back at Earth and going, well, who's the best at building little rockets for launching off little planets? It probably is Rocket Lab. So, if you look at the most unproven, most complex element of the mission, I think we're in pretty good spot to give that a crack. Electron is an incredibly unique vehicle. I mean, its payload mass fraction is really high for a small vehicle. And we've got that kind of down pat. So that I don't want to trivialize the mission because it is non-trivial. But the most complicated element that hasn't been demonstrated, I think we're pretty good at.
And this is I will admit this is a little bit of a cheeky question, but you have the private mission to Venus planned. If for whatever reason, and I'll just leave it at that, Mars sample return doesn't go ahead from NASA's perspective, and we'll put that to one side, is Rocket Lab at all interested in doing a private Mars sample return, assuming you, of course, have the permission to go and collect the samples which have been deposited on the surface of Mars? Is that something you would endeavor to do it by yourself, or maybe do a group of companies coming together to go and retrieve these samples, bring them back for scientists here on Earth?
Man, I get in trouble for just spending a little bit of company money on Venus, let alone like spending. I don't think I could. I think I'd get fired as a CEO if I spent billions of dollars of shareholder money trying to get samples back off Mars. But look, I mean, if there was ever a private endeavor, then of course we're not afraid to do those kinds of things. But I think Mars sample return is the perfect example of a why governments do science, because there is no commercial justification for doing it. It's 100% a scientific human good justification. So I think for a commercial company to justify doing that is much at that scale is very, very difficult.
100%. And I think we should move on to talking about the Mars Telecommunications Orbiter, because that was, of course, a part of your proposal for your Mars sample return architecture. But since that point, we, of course, seen in the reconciliation bill the long forgotten, should I say, originally a plan from the early 2000s, then cancelled, I believe, in 2005. It's been brought back. The current US administration is providing $700 million for a Mars Telecommunications Orbiter. You are very interested in the MTO from all of the things we've been seeing on social media, I think it's fair to say. But you're not the only company dedicating a lot of your current social media output to a Mars Telecommunications Orbiter. There hasn't been any official request from NASA for a Mars Telecommunications Orbiter. Why are you so interested in the MTO? I mean, why MTO? Why are you so interested in it? And why are you why are you dedicating so much to your current public outreach to advertising MTO?
Well, so there's a couple of things there. So, firstly, as you point out, MTO was part of our Mars sample return architecture, and nothing happens without communications, great communications. And obviously, this administration has a strong desire to put a footprint on Mars, and you're not going to put a footprint on Mars until you have high bandwidth, reliable communications, prolific communications on the surface of Mars. The saying "Pixar, it didn't happen" is incredibly relevant here. So that needs to be that reliable infrastructure. So I know a lot of people have given up on Mars sample return. I'll never give up on Mars sample return. So getting one critical element there is really important, and the MTO is a critical element to Mars sample return. It's also equally as critical element for human landings on the planet, and it has to be there before the human landing on the planet anyway. So our approach here and our architecture is kind of like it's an aerosynchronous orbit, or kind of think of it like a geostationary orbit around Mars, and high bandwidth communications obviously down to the surface, but also laser comms back to Earth. And that's what needs to happen to get that kind of reliable and high bandwidth comm link back to Earth. So our architecture is not like a proliferated low Mars orbit architecture, because the delay time from Mars to Earth is such that you don't need the kind of really quick surface to satellite delay times that you need on Earth, obviously, for doing different things. So we think that architecture is good, but I just see it as like step one. Like, are we going to go and collect the samples off the surface of Mars? Step one, Mars telecommunication orbiter. Are we going to land somebody on Mars? Step one, Mars telecommunication orbiter. So that's why I'm kind of passionate and serious about it. Like, if we're going to seriously do these things, it's kind of like, let's put the wheels on the car.
And those links between Earth and Mars, very long way, takes a little bit of time because of physics to get those communication links between Earth and Mars. What are you planning to actually use as the medium for communicating? Is it going to be radio? Are you looking at optical like we've been seeing? How do you want to be able to actually shout back to Earth and get those communications in place between the two planets?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you can have a traditional RF link. That is obviously a big burden on DSN, that's obviously proven. We're starting to know quite a bit about optical comms these days, there has been some successful demonstrations of deep space optical comms. So I think, look, the gold standard here would be a laser optical relay link. That would be the gold standard for maximum bandwidth and kind of unburdening DSN.
And speaking of the DSN, do you plan to rely on the DSN, or are you going to be doing your own relays back to Earth? Or because the Deep Space Network, I think it's fair to say, it has a lot of clients right now. Some more capacity would be nice, I think they would say. You say you don't want to burden the DSN, but are you going to be doing your own communications back down to Earth? Are you going to be still working with the DSN? How's that going to be working?
Yeah, look, I mean, in some respects, this is up to the customer, right, up to NASA as well. I mean, we can wave our hands and all we want, but ultimately, this is a service for a customer. Excuse me. So it'll depend a little bit on what those requirements are, but sort of blue sky architecture. I mean, we think an optical relay link is by far that solves all of the problems. To your point, it unburdens DSN, and you can have a relatively boring and simple RF link back to Earth if needed be, or even look for optical comms right back to surface.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to ask the question of what actually makes Rocket Lab, in your opinion, the best qualified provider to provide this service to NASA should they want it. What is Rocket Lab's thing that would set it apart, your architecture? What would set it apart from the other things being discussed? Because we have, of course, your Mars telecommunications proposal, which is just one satellite in Mars orbit. We have other people proposing constellations of satellites, some with more satellites, some with less satellites. What makes Rocket Lab and what makes your architecture the best to serve a MTO role for NASA?
Yeah, well, I mean that's a loaded question, because of course we're going to say ours is best, but objectively, if you stand back and you go, well, it's hard to get to Mars, so putting a low orbiting constellation that requires replenishment every 5 years is probably not a good plan, because it's hard to get there, it's expensive to get metal there. So that's why we like the architecture of something in very high Earth orbit that's got a 10, 20, 30-year lifetime, right? You don't want to be doing that, replenishing those kind of assets. You want them to just sit there and just go forever, because it's, like I say, it's a long time to get there. So I think the architecture that we have is unique. I think we have some very unique expertise in things like optical comms and stuff now, that I think we can solve some of those problems. And look, we're no stranger to Mars. I mean, as you alluded to, through some of our acquisitions, we have a tremendous amount of hardware sitting on Mars. I think we have the most amount of solar power on Mars out of any company right now, and we've got 2 spacecraft, Escapade, that are on their way to Mars later this year. So we're not strangers to building spacecraft that can obviously transit and operate in and around Mars for long periods of time. So I think there's a good level of experience. I think there's a good level of architecture. This is starting to sound like a sales pitch, so we should stop. But I think you get the idea. I think that's a project that's well suited to us.
Yeah. And of course, as you said, if this were to go ahead, this would be Rocket Lab providing a service to NASA. But I'm just wondering if you have any kind of, just thinking ahead, any kind of inkling as to whether this would be a bespoke platform. Rocket Lab, of course, has a lot of experience building satellite platforms. You spoke earlier about how there's some literally Electron parts that are going into Neutron. Are you going to be doing something similar for a Mars telecommunications orbiter, or would it be completely bespoke? Everything's brand new. No. It's a Mars telecommunications orbiter. This hasn't been done before.
No, I mean in the president's budget, it has to be awarded by 26 and launched by 28. So there's no opportunity there to do something crazy like the way you can operate and turn around a complicated spacecraft in that time frame is to take stuff that you've got. So it's a derivative of our Explorer bus. It uses some Pioneer bus parts, and of course it's a communications platform, so that uses some of the Lightning bus stuff. So we're in a unique scenario where we've got enough platforms and enough components in house that it's literally go to the Rocket Lab catalog and start selecting the bits out of it that you want, and start putting them together. So we've kind of got to that point now of scale within the company that there's very, very few things that we don't have that we can just go and pull off the shelf.
I love the idea of engineers walking around the factory with a huge, thick paper catalogue, just going through, oh, what do we need for a Mars target? Let's have one of them, pick it off the shelf. Yeah, brilliant visual.
Well, it's pretty much the reality. I mean, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. And very briefly, I believe we have one more question from the chat, so I'll throw it back over to Sawyer, who has been keeping an eye, reading all the questions and comments. What have you got, Sawyer?
Yeah, definitely. So PM Rusty saying Rocket Lab has indicated they may look at partnerships into the foray into commercial constellations for their own space applications. Are there any partnership ideas under consideration? And is that still something that you're looking into, is being able to kind of do that joint infrastructure to better benefit Rocket Lab's Mars endeavors?
Is it that question specific just to Mars, or is it specific to in general?
It was originally for Mars, but if there's
Mars,
if there's other ones too that you want to mention, you can.
No, it'll get me in trouble. So no, from a Mars perspective, obviously we'll partner with folks like JPL who have a lot of experience operating in Mars and so those kinds of things. But with respect to kind of other commercial entities, no, I think we've got everything we need to be able to do that particular project.
And is the goal to kind of stick with the one Mars telecommunication orbiter, or as you get more confident and get more things sent over to Mars, to kind of expand that network a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be great to have 2 or 3 of them. That would be great. But I mean, what we're focused on, and I think what's important is how do you saturate the planet in maximum comms for the longest period of time for the lowest price. I mean, that's what's relevant here. So we can have kind of grand ambitions of proliferating Mars with comms birds, but the reality is that the most sensible thing to do is start with a very long longevity kind of designed and operational spacecraft to just, like I say, just saturate the service with comms.
Fantastic. Thank you so much again for your time. Ryan, I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, I will say during the show, I did get a message, and that message said that we will, like, as a confirmation, before the first launch of Neutron, we will make sure there is an Electron launch in the NSF intro. So hopefully that will be satisfactory to your desire to get some Rocket Lab action in the NSF intro.
There you go. There you go. Personally, I think it reflects more poorly on you guys than me, but there you go.
Well, thank you very much. We always appreciate viewer feedback, so thank you very much, Peter Beck. Thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been wonderful talking to you as always. It's it's brilliant to see what you guys are up to right now over at Rocket Lab, and fingers crossed it's a very exciting next couple of years coming up.
Awesome. Thanks very much, guys. Always love talking to you. It's awesome.
And of course, thank you to Sawyer as well for joining me, answering or asking all of the questions from the chat room as well. Thank you very much, Sawyer.
Absolutely. Appreciate all the questions and very much appreciate your time once again, Peter. Thank you.
No, I love it. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
And of course, thanks to Jay in the background, pushing all the buttons, producing today's show. With that, my name's been Ryan Caton. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RA-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Echo down to nominal.
Fighting outside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.